back, everyone, to Real Talk with the Sexperts. Tonight we're getting clinical, but making it a little hot and spicy. For those of you who are here for the first time, Real Talk is a live Q&A panel of certified therapists, coaches, sexologists, sex educators, pleasure activists who are here to transform conversations around sex, modern intimacy, relationships, love, and dating based on all of your curiosities and burning questions. In tonight's panel, we're getting clinical. We're answering your questions from anatomy, arousal, libido, pelvic health, and sexual wellness, clearly, honestly, and with a little dose of humor along the way. We'll cover everything from pain during sex, difficulty reaching orgasm, body connection, plus the practical side. So we're talking lube, toys, and exploring both sexual and non-sexual pleasure. So as always, we invite you to submit your questions, your comments, your reactions in the chat, resources. And for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm your host, Jamie Azar, sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and founder of Erotic Expressions, where I work with individuals and couples to dismantle shame, recenter pleasure, and redefine relationships and intimacy beyond pressure and expectations. So I don't want to talk too much about myself today. We've got some amazing new panelists with us today. So I'm going to pass over the mic to our newest panelist, Megan, and our other panelists will jump in, and then we'll get right to our questions.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Meyer. I live in the upstate of South Carolina, and I'm an intimacy specialist. I've been in business for 15 years this year, which blows my mind. And my background is in nonprofit management. So in nonprofit, it basically teaches you how to wear every single hat in an organization, which lends itself well to running your own business. I started with a direct sales company that some of y'all might have heard of before, but branched out on my own. And now I work directly with clients doing in-home parties, pop-up events, just matchmaking them to the products that they're looking for. So I'm able to partner with amazing brands, give my clients the best deal, but then also have a lot of fun doing it. I basically refer to myself as like your vaginal concierge. I hope that Zoom won't shut us down for saying that. And I'm like, yeah, so let's just stick with that. Caitlin, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Thanks, Megan. My name is Caitlin. I am a doctor of physical therapy and I specialize in pelvic health. And when I first decided to specialize in pelvic health, I thought that meant my biggest mission would be to help people to not pee on themselves when they were doing activities and to have better sex. And while those are wonderful missions to have, I've actually learned that through doing that, my mission is much bigger than that. It has become more along the lines of helping people feel very connected to their bodies and very in love with their bodies so that they move throughout the world with confidence and just really loving life and loving themselves. So it's become something way bigger than I thought it would, which is amazing and almost makes me tear up a little bit. So it's really an honor to work with people in the way that I do.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah.
That's really cool, Caitlin. Hi, I'm Lacey. I am a sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and an adult sex educator. I live in LA and I work a lot with religious purity culture survivors. And I tend to work with folks who are in the kink or polyamorous spaces, though not always. It's not like you jump straight from being a good Christian girl to being a poly kinky weirdo like myself. It's a journey, and I didn't have anyone holding my hand on my journey. So that's what I do for people. Oh, thank you, Liana. I love you.
Thanks, Lace.
Should I hop in?
You're good, Jamie. Yeah.
Hi. Okay. Hi, I'm Jamie. I am a marriage and family therapist in South Carolina. And yeah, I specialize in relational work, which does not always mean couples. Sometimes the relational work we do is with ourselves. And kind of just beginning a specialization in menstrual health and kind of that mind-body connection. So yeah, excited to be here on this very special panel.
Excited to have you back. Thanks, everyone. All right, so let's get into it. For folks that are here as guests, I've organized all of your questions into thematic topics, okay? Just sort of FYI for organizational purposes. So we're starting with toys, and then we'll be talking about pelvic health, and we'll be moving into sexual difficulty, dysfunction, arousal, and libido. So we will get to all of your questions. They may not just necessarily be the order in which you submitted them. All right, so our first topic, let's talk toys. And I think there can be a lot of shame and stigma when it comes to using toys. So, how might we start exploring toys in a way that feels empowering rather than intimidating? And a question that kind of branched off from that from one of our participants is, should I be offended that toys are used? Yeah, Lacey?
Well, the hand thingy on my phone is hard to get to.
No worries, it's
The hand
okay.
raise feature. Yeah, no, this is such a good question. And I think it's because like we tend to have this narrative that like a person is the best way to get off, and people like playing with a partner is amazing. But tools and toys are teammates, not competition. So like if someone has a toy that they know works for them, or if they're interested in exploring, that's an invitation to like learn more about their body and their pleasure, or to learn with them. Either they're teaching you and showing you something that works for them, or you're experimenting with something together. That's my little 2 cents.
Yeah, I love that. Not competition, toys or tools, they're collaborators. And I see it. I love that you said it's more of an invitation. Anyone want to add to that? Other ways that we can start exploring toys in a way that feels empowering rather than intimidating?
Yeah. I don't know. I think, yeah, to like definitely I would have said all of that too, Lacey, of like we're teammates. Like this is a partner in your sex life. This is something to just help and have fun with. And yeah, like if you are doing like partnered sex, you're yeah, exploring it together. And also thinking about how, like, if we go into how we think about sex too, I think sex toys kind of challenge the narrative that sex is just penis and vagina kind of thing. And this brings like a whole, like this, I mean, with toys, it is a lot about, I mean, they can go inside of you. There's a lot that do, but with toys, I think there is a bigger focus on foreplay, which not everyone kind of currently thinks of as sex. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jamie. I think, like you said, helps people to incorporate more exploration, a little bit more play as well. I see from the chat, people are saying, in addition, as long as it's together, but often it is often one person turns over and finishes themselves. Yeah, so I
Mm.
think the question might, yeah, Lacey, what's coming up for you? Something around that?
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point. Thank you for raising it. I mean, it kind of goes back to the like, is sex about you or is it about shared pleasure? And like, as someone who requires a lot of stimulation, like it can be frustrating if like if the partner that you're playing with, even if like you're using a toy, like is not quite getting you to where you want to be. So if you have a toy that like, you know what, I know the cheat code, I can like up, down, down, A, B, left, right, Konami it. But like in those instances, finding ways to like invite your partner in of like, hey, can I make out with you while I do this? Like, I would love to keep this escalating. And finding a way to like make out or touch or like still stay connected during that so that you can also still um, arrive, as it were. That's what comes up for me because that is definitely a thing.
Yeah, Megan, what's coming up for you? Thanks, Lacey.
So, one of the things that I tell my clients a lot is, or encourage them, is to start small. Like, toys don't always have to be the biggest thing ever. It can just be simple, like a clitoral stimulator that you can use with a partner, and reminding them that, like, it's your responsibility to know your body. So, I would strongly encourage folks to like get to know themselves first, play around with toys, realize that folks with clitorises can have 10,000 nerve endings and clitoral stimulation. Many folks with clitorises, 80% need clitoral stimulation to achieve an orgasm. So if an orgasm is the goal and something that a couple might be striving towards, then just like Lacey said, these are teammates or not competition, especially if we're thinking more of a heterosexual relationship. If the penis is in the vagina, sometimes the clitoris is ignored. So this is just a fun way to add a little bit of stimulation without replacing. I often say that these are relationship enhancement items, not replacement items.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. And absolutely a great tool to learn more about yourself and what feels good, and then to be able to communicate that with your partner. Absolutely. And people are saying in the chat as well, the penis and vagina sex as the only thing that counts as real sex excludes people as well. Absolutely. That's a very narrow definition of sex. It's based in heteronormativity. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. And absolutely excludes queer people from that. Thank you for sharing. Other people are saying shared exploration of erotic pleasure should be the definition of partnered sex. Absolutely. I love that. And even sensory toys used on erogenous zones. People are saying love a good vibe. Good. Absolutely. Yeah, and good. I love the idea about sensory toys used on erogenous zones, right? Like Megan was talking about, again, the 10,000 nerve endings in the clitoris. And right, we can use toys beyond our genitalia as well. So thanks for adding that in. Awesome. Love it. Thanks. So some people have been asking as well. Well, actually, before we get into that, can we talk a little bit about lube? Because I feel like if we're talking about toys, we got to talk a little bit about lube. So I think there's also a lot of shame and stigma and misunderstanding when it comes to using lube. So where would you folks recommend people start when it comes to using lube, lube compatibility? How can we help people out that might be first timers or a little even intimidated to use lube in the bedroom? Yeah, Megan, what's coming up for you?
Um, I am a firm believer that everybody needs lube. I often joke that everything is better, wetter. It's become my life motto. And what I found with my clients is that a water-based lube, especially my clients with vulvas, especially if they're not able to produce enough lubrication, and what's enough. But especially this time of year in the South, it's pollen season. So a lot of people don't realize that like allergy medicine is going to dry you out. So lube is never a shameful thing. It's another teammate in the bedroom. And I can't tell you how many clients think that they've gotten sick or have gotten an infection when they just didn't have lubrication. It was just too much friction. And then, if they urinate after sex, they feel it burning and they immediately think that they've got an STI. And then they're filled with shame about that, even though there's nothing shameful about STIs. But there's so many different lubes to choose from. And I think for a lot of folks, it's overwhelming when you walk into a store and you just have this wall of lube, or you walk into a store and there's only one, and that's the one that broke you out last time. So I think finding a good, high quality, FDA approved pH balanced lube, simple water-based lube is a great place to start. But then depending on the situations you hope to find yourselves in, knowing the difference between a water-based lube and a silicone or a hybrid. Which orifices are we going to use the lubricant in is important to know which type of lubes to shop for. And that's something, if you hear these questions and you don't know where to start, that's when it's great to reach out to any one of us on this panel, and we can kind of point you in good directions to make sure that you're not just buying the cheapest thing on the end cap at the store because it was on sale. And then, you tried it once and it was a terrible idea. Oh, so I'll never do it again, right? Because how many of us have heard people say that? Oh, I did it once, it was terrible, I'll never do it again. And lube just makes everything better. It's like the duct tape for sex.
Yeah.
Fixes everything.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. And we did have a question that kind of relates to what you were just sharing. So I'm going to hop around a little here, but someone had said sometimes after sex, and this was from an assigned female at birth, my inner labia gets swollen. They're unsure if this is due to not being well lubricated or if it is due to arousal. So what would you folks say to that? Caitlin, what comes up for you here?
Yeah. I was actually really excited about this question because I think that the answer is going to be an annoying answer of it depends. It could be a lack of lubrication. And in that case, like, let's add some lube. How do I put my hand down? Lower hand.
Oh, you're good.
But it could also be arousal, and I brought something to demonstrate that.
Awesome.
I'm so excited to have this.
We love realia here.
Good. So this is a vulva, and you can see that we have the glands of the clitoris at the top, and then you can see we have the outer labia and the inner labia right here, right? And then if this I love so much because I can actually take the clitoris out and you can see it's much larger than just the gland. Yeah, Lacey, I love that.
I want one. Send me a link.
I will send you a link. This is really great. Actually, like there are better options than this one that I found, so I'll send you a few links. But I love this because if I put this back in its place and then I turn it around from this view that you don't normally see, you can see that there are vestibular bulbs on either side of the vaginal opening. And so if I were looking this way, if they're super aroused because they actually engorge as arousal levels increase, it might look like the inner labia are very large and engorged as well. And so usually with very high levels of arousal, we will see that the inner labia and sometimes also the outer labia is a lot bigger than when we're not aroused. So all that to say, it could be irritation from lack of lubrication, maybe, but it could also be very high levels of arousal. So yay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's helpful and love the realia and the demo. So it can be a common occurrence is what I'm hearing. It's the engorgement is often due to increased blood flow during that sexual arousal.
Exactly.
And then maybe if the swelling persists or it's accompanied by pain, discomfort, then
Right.
maybe it is more due to friction or lubrication, right?
Yeah.
More pain-based. Okay.
Yeah, and just to add, like if there is pain and if there's like increased redness that persists even after maybe some of the swelling goes down, then it could be indications of, excuse me, needing more lubrication for whatever activities are happening.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And we are going to be getting the topic of painful sex shortly. All right. So we've got some lube tips in the chat. Never forget a little spray of water next to the water hybrid lube. The second it gets sticky, a little magical psh, and the face of my partner changes. All right. Perfect. Love it. All right. So we do have some questions while we're still on the topic of toys, pertaining to toys for disabled people with limited mobility or energy. So do we have any recommendations for activities and/or toys for disabled folks who are dealing with limited mobility or energy? Yeah, Lacey, thank you.
Find the unmute button. Yeah, so I'm a disabled person with chronic hand pain. So that's going to be the perspective that I come from because my mobility impairments tend to have to do with repetitive movements. And the Hitachi is the best-selling thing in the world forever for a very good reason. Please pardon my dryer buzzer. It does not know how to shut up.
Wasn't sure if it was the buzzer or the wand.
Yeah, that was like really good timing.
I'm not going to top that. I'll just see myself out. Vibrator toys I find to be a really useful tool for all manner of anatomy. And like we were just seeing with that model of the clit, like you can apply sensory toys or stimulation to all kinds of area. It doesn't have to just be like on the tip of the glands or what have you. There's a lot of different areas that if you buzz them, they will light up. And I've gotten very distracted by my buzzer and like
No, so the magic wand, I'm hearing the magic wand is a great tool and also can be used all over the body. Absolutely. The ADHD is real. Someone said in the chat. Yeah, you know. But absolutely. Anything else coming to mind, Lacey or other panelists for activities or toys for disabled folks with mobility, limited mobility or energy? Yeah, Megan, what's coming up for you?
So one of the things that I started carrying recently are toy mounts. So something where if you don't want a handhold, then you can just literally slide your toy in it. Do you mind if I grab it? I'll grab it and show you guys.
Yeah, please. We love the realia, the visuals.
Ugh. Hold on, they're on like the top shelf because of course they are.
And people are saying dildo handles are really something they're big fans of too. Okay.
So this is a toy mount and it literally just has a slit in the top where you can shove your toy into it. So I've got this glass one that you can literally like slide into it, and then you can hop on it
Mhm.
and ride hands free. So you can put
Mhm.
any toy you want in there. And another one that I found a lot of my clients are really enjoying right now, especially like how Lacey was saying, if you've got hand issues or arthritis or cramping, is something that's easy to hold on to. Bullets are so small and so precise, but this, something like this, would just slide into your hand and then just be palm controlled over it. This is my PR by Megan vulva that I use when I don't have my vulva puppet with me. So, right, so you can still use this anywhere you want for stimulation. And it's super easy just to hold on to without gripping.
Mhm. Yeah, those are all, I love all those. Those are really helpful too. Megan kind of had the pillow, the wedge, the hands-free sex toy holders. I've seen one with like a suction cup base, two Velcro straps, that can hold a toy in place. You can adjust the angle of the toy, attach a vibrator and kind of grind against it for hands-free pleasure, like Megan showed us. Hand harnesses to hold toys in place that assist with gripping. Lacey, what else would you add?
The only one that's like coming top of mind is like fuck machines, and they are, you don't have to spend like $1,200 on a Sybian. There's like affordable ones that are more in like the 100 $150 range, which like I know is not necessarily affordable, but when you're comparing it to like the top of the line, it becomes a lot more accessible. So that if you want like percussive, penetrative intercourse, but your partner may not have the body for that or may not want to be doing that all the time, like we love a mechanical, we like a robot that you can incorporate into your erotic team, as it were.
Yeah, thanks. I think those are all really helpful. Suction toys, thrusting vibrators, dildos. Yeah, and people are like, "Oh, I need one." Okay, with all the toys, Megan, you're showing. People love show and tell. They're saying, "I love it." Thanks for the enthusiasm in the
I'll
chat.
drop my link in the chat at the end.
Yes, of course, of course. All right. So the next question, we had someone asked about healthy bottoming practices, especially as it relates to diet, pre-activity cleaning, to help those for us that enjoy anal play. So healthy bottoming practices for those that enjoy anal play. I know I follow a board certified urologist, Joshua Gonzalez, and he made a video on this. So I was like, all right, well, what does he have to say about this? So what he had to say was that diet matters a little bit more than a douching routine, really. So focusing on diet in general, but specifically the day before, eating a diet low residue with like for eggs, bananas, white bread, rice, avoiding red meat, beans, high fiber foods the day of. He also talked about the fact that we have two anal sphincters, right? We have an external that is conscious that we can control, and then an internal sphincter that's involuntary that we can't force it open, right? That's when pain happens, when we're pushing through. So it's really important to take it slow and listen to your body and be communicating, checking in. As it relates to douching, again, diet is generally more important, then you don't have to do it as much. People generally recommend using a bulb, not a shower shot, as attachments and pressure can be too much force. Lukewarm water only, and then 2 to 3 rinses until the water runs clear. And again, taking it really slow, like Megan was saying, right? We don't have to go like start with the most extravagant, like intense vibrator dildo toy, right? Like we can warm up using one finger, 2 fingers, a small toy to prepare the tissue. Caitlin, what's coming up for you around this?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about lubricant for this too, because one, that's really, really, really important, but a difference between like anal play versus vaginal play is that the anal tissues and the rectal tissues are very like all about absorbing. So if you're using a water-based lubricant, you might find it might not last as long as you need it to because those tissues will absorb it much quicker. That also goes for if it is some sort of like vaginal penetration and the vagina and the vulvar tissues are really, really dry, you might find that the water-based lubricants don't last as long as you want them to. So it might be a good idea to try like an oil-based lubricant. It might last a little bit longer.
Absolutely. Or silicone based. That's really helpful.
Yes.
Thanks for adding that. Good. All right. Anyone want to add to that? Yeah,
One
Lacey?
little thing.
Yeah.
When we are doing backdoor play and hygiene becomes extra important, if you are also in possession of a vagina, you are never going to want to go back to front without cleaning in between because E. coli is a very big risk, as are some other things. So having a good hygiene routine before and after to prevent infections or UTIs, which are an infection, is very important. So just jot that down.
Yeah, no, thanks for adding that. And people are saying in the chat as well, specific condoms too should be used. Ones that are more resistant again. Yeah, lube compatibility again. Absolutely. All right, we're going to transition to talking a little bit about pelvic health. So pelvic health is something that is rarely talked about, really. And so, how do we really know if something is off? And what are signs people shouldn't ignore? Yeah, Caitlin, what comes up for you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. I think that the biggest thing that is for some reason easy to ignore is pain. And I don't know. So I primarily work with women. So I'll speak to that mostly, but I know that this happens with all genders and all people. But pain in our healthcare system right now, right? It's very easy to go to the doctor and say, I have this pain. And the doctor, if they are like an average doctor, will be like, well, here's some medicine. And if they are a not great doctor, they will say, no, that's not really like you're fine and kind of be dismissive. So I think when it comes, especially to this part of our bodies where there can be already a lot of shame and a lot of feeling like I need to keep it private and secret, then we're going to talk about pain in that area. Like that, I think that that is a really challenging thing to overcome, and very easy to just be like, well, it's okay, like I can just bear it. So that would be something to not ignore because pain is not normal. I want to also say, like, leaking urine is not normal. It's very common, but not normal. There are many things in our pelvic realm that I think are common and mistaken for then, okay, it's common, so it's normal, but it's really not. So basically, if anything isn't working the way that you want it to work, that's when you should get some help.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Jamie, what's coming up for you around this?
Yeah. I'm also thinking, and I guess I like raised my hand and then realized like this is maybe adjacent to the question. And me like thinking more about menstrual health lately, I am thinking about menstrual health. So I'm also thinking like, outside of pain, or I guess this would also include pain. I think that it is like so important for all of us, particularly like with female anatomy or with vaginas and vulvas, to kind of to track things a little bit, even if we don't have a period, or even if, like, I don't know, even if like your body is, yeah, like doesn't have a period or doesn't have a uterus, probably even like we should be tracking things in our body so that we know kind of what is normal for us. And then if you start like if you're tracking it, then you're aware of it and you will more easily notice if something seems different and seems off. And then if you're tracking it, you kind of have a written down record that you can look at, that you can show your doctor. And I don't know, I think it sucks that we have to be so, I don't know, like we have to be so thorough with our medical providers, but yeah, because a lot of them, maybe don't listen or they brush things off. And so having like an actual record of like, this is what happened, this is the day it happened, this is how often it's happening, whatever, then we have that and we can take it to doctors until we find the one that listens to us and is like, oh yeah, thank you for having this list of things. So yeah, I think that's so important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jamie, and building on to what Caitlin said. And I think that interoception that you're talking about, like being attuned to what's happening in the body, is important, right? To know what's kind of normal for us, for the individual. And I think that also helps the case that Caitlin was also speaking to around the shame, right? Around pain and sex, and also the minimization of it, right? The marginalization and the dismissing and normalizing of pain, right? When we, like we said, it's not normal to experience pain, though it might be common, right? And again, even acknowledging how that looks very different depending on your positionality in society, right? And we know Black women, women of color, people of color experience medical racism and discrimination at much higher and disproportionate rates unjustly. And so, absolutely, I mean, looking at this from a social, cultural standpoint as well. Yeah. And so, having that awareness, like Jamie's saying, can also help for self advocacy along the way if we are met with that dismissiveness or discrimination or whatever it is, that lack of support, born out of patriarchy and white supremacy, and I'm going to call it out. So, anyways, I appreciate. I'm sorry. I'm like, I've got to go there too because it's so real, and especially what's happening now. So I think that's all really helpful. And people are also sharing in the chat that they worked as a receptionist at an urgent care for a while. The amount of people, usually women, who were so quiet and embarrassed telling this person that they had a UTI was so sad. Yeah. So again, the shame, the silencing, especially if you're AFAB, the dismissal is crazy. I love record keeping, but it sucks. It's nearly required. Yeah, people are sharing. Let it be known in the manosphere nowadays, a penis owner with a dynamic pelvic floor, instant turn because it means some pleasures or practices will be enhanced. Turn on. Sorry, I think something's covering that word for me. Okay. Okay. So like, and like men that are like in tune with the pelvic floor, like people are turned on by that. Pelvic floor matters for all genders. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what we're hearing. Good. All right. Perfect. Love it. Anyone else on the topic? People also had some questions. We're talking about pain during sex, so let's kind of go there a little bit. People are wondering, is it possible to have vaginismus and have it not be a problem? Other people were asking for tools for vaginismus, tools for post-surgery, male to female transitions, inflatable inserts. We've got a couple different questions on the list here coming up for folks. So firstly, for those people that don't know, like, what is vaginismus? Can anyone provide us a general definition and just kind of an overview of what's going on? Yeah, Caitlin.
I'd be happy to. So vaginismus is when the muscles around the opening of the vaginal canal are spasming involuntarily to the point where penetration is either very, very difficult or impossible. So that is like, that's my best understanding of the definition of vaginismus. I think also it has to come with like distress to the person. So the question of, can someone have vaginismus and it not be a problem, to me is like, I don't know, maybe not, because if it's not a problem and you're not distressed by it, then is it truly vaginismus? Now, if that question meant like, is it a medical problem? Like, or can I have this and it not be a medical problem? The only thing that comes up for me with that is like, if you have vaginismus, but no desire for vaginal penetration, it's probably not a problem until if you need like a pelvic exam and you go to a gynecologist and they are not able to do the exam, that's when I would see it being an issue, if that makes sense.
Can I ask you a question on that too? Because that was kind of a question around that, like for people that might need more manual intervention from a physiotherapist or pelvic floor therapist, and that, like you're saying, they might have vaginismus, they might have that fear, anxiety around penetration and the pain. Any recommendations for how to approach that? Like how might you approach that with your clients or enter into that work?
Yeah, very, very slowly and gently. There are certainly tools, and I have some here. I don't have the right ones, so take this with a grain of salt, but there are vaginal dilators. that can be used to help this. I don't have the smallest one with me, so this is not it. The smallest one is really like maybe a little bit smaller than my pinky. I don't know if
Megan, go ahead.
Megan might have some.
Megan, your inventory. Go ahead, grab it.
She's like, I have some. But I would say like even before dilators are introduced, when I'm working with someone, I do internal work and I do hands-on manual therapy, and I have found it to be very helpful to go even slower than bringing the dilators out on day one. And it might start with, we're going to look at the surrounding muscles and what are they doing. And so we'll look at the inner thighs, we'll look at even the glutes and the abdominal muscles, and can we get those to voluntarily relax? And can they be okay with touch? And then slowly moving in as the person is feeling comfortable. And with vaginismus too, there is very much a psychological, emotional, mental side of it, which is out of my scope. So a team would be best, like bringing on someone who can help with that side of things would be crucial as well. And then maybe like even me in communication with the team, like the therapist or sex coach, intimacy coach, so that we can incorporate like what are we doing in the treatment sessions to work with this client and this patient.
Thanks, Caitlin, for adding that. Yeah, Lacey, what's coming up for you?
I have a question for Caitlin, since I don't work in like a physiology capacity, but it seems to be that a lot of purity culture survivors have vaginismus, and I was curious whether the demographics in which you work have certain trends. Like who has vaginismus the most?
Yes. I have found actually everyone that I've worked with vaginismus is either a teenager or in their early 20s, and has lived in, I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, so if you geographically know where that is, it's not we're not very progressive when it comes to sex here. Right?
Bible Belt, right?
Yes, we're in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the people I've seen, I want to say almost every person I've seen with vaginismus is in that age range of like teenagers to early 20s. And if not like shameful around sex, just very stressed out about life in general, whether it's like going transition from high school to college or college to grad school or school to working. I've seen that be like a correlating factor as well. So just high levels of stress, potentially also with high levels of shame and not wanting to let, family members down, I think is a common one I've seen too.
Thanks for adding that. Megan, what's coming up for you around it? And also if we have any recommendations for people that asked about positions and cushion rings too. Yeah. What have we got over there now? What have we got for us?
So this is the dilator set that I most commonly recommend. There's 6 different sizes, starting with literally like as skinny as a pencil or a pen, short, shorter than a tampon typically would be, all the way up to what some people would consider to be the average erect penis size. So if somebody wants to work their way up to be able to accommodate a penis, this is great. But this is also recommended for anal stimulation as well. So if we're looking at maybe exploring a little bit, just want to see if we like it, not maybe necessarily starting with something this size, starting in this range is perfectly fine too. The other thing that I wanted to point out, I know we talked about lubes earlier, but there are lubes with, can I show you those 3 letters without getting shadow banned?
CBD, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Lubricants with CBD, I'm not making medical claims, but they can help to alleviate pain. So a lot of my clients, if they have vaginismus, if they're maybe survivors of trauma, if they've had really traumatic birth experiences, right? Or super painful periods, or they suffer from PCOS, endometriosis, anything where penetration or insertion might be uncomfortable. This CBD-based lube tends to get a lot of love that way. But yes, positioning tools, things like wedges, mounts, chairs, loungers, can be super helpful if typical P and V penetration is painful, especially in a cishet relationship, then finding other ways to have sex outside of just missionary, which again, living in the upstate of South Carolina is just kind of the understood norm for so many of our clients. And then what I find is most of the women I'm working with are looking for permission to try something different, even if it's flipping over, even if it's laying on their side, even if it's putting a cushion under their tush to help alleviate lower back pain. So wedges, ramps, loungers, always a win.
Thanks, Megan. That's really helpful. Caitlin, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I wanted to I feel like maybe we're moving away from vaginal dilators, and you mentioned something about post-gender affirming surgery. And these are,
Thanks for returning that.
yeah, I just didn't want to miss it because I think it's so important. But I do also think in general, what I've seen is surgeons are really good about um, really communicating the importance of using vaginal dilators after the surgery so that the vaginal canal is healthy and maintained. So that's another big reason why vaginal dilators are important. I also, with vaginismus, I just wanted to circle back to that one more time because a huge part of it could also be from some sort of sexual trauma. And so I just wanted to make sure that we spoke to that as well, because that can be a
Yeah.
huge reason behind it, whether
Yeah.
it's like trauma that we remember or don't remember.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some people in the chat saying they've had vaginismus and have gotten to a point where it isn't distressing anymore. Working with the pelvic floor therapist and dilators helped. Later on, they entered their first sexual relationship, had some trouble for the first few times, but went slow. And now I'm able to follow through with intercourse without as much trouble. Yeah, so great. Thanks for sharing that. And people are also sharing a recent statistic is that women who grew up in evangelical environments have a higher likelihood of being diagnosed with vaginismus, which is me. Thank you for sharing. Other people were asking about speculums. They're more comfortable for insertion, and other people have shared some resources around that as well. Asking the OBGYN to be examined with alternatives. And again, coming back to that self advocacy. Good. Jamie, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I wanted to also add because I know Caitlin, maybe someone else kind of mentioned this, but the kind of mental aspect of pelvic pain and vaginismus, that the like fear and anxiety that comes with that is then like perpetuating it because then your muscles tense up every time you're afraid of it. And so in therapy with people, at least in the type of like the therapy models that I use, it is a lot of like I'm branching out into more experiential therapy. So where maybe we would do like an art project where we I don't know, we like draw what we envision is happening when we are like afraid of having pain when we have sex or something like that. But currently it's a lot, I do a lot of kind of like telling the story of what is happening, right? And that can be in like a more like fictionalized way where it's like, yeah, like is there like a mean girl down there and she's like, doing something, or it can be literally like you know, when did this first happen? And go back and remember, like put yourself in that place again and what was going on around you. And kind of, starting kind of at the beginning and telling the story until now and seeing if we can like untangle the like web of things a little bit. There's like a lot of lies we tell ourselves about things that we don't even like realize are lies or like rules that we've made for ourselves or something. And so, yeah, so kind of reauthoring the story of like our pelvis.
I love that. I love that in that final line, especially. And I think what you shared is helpful. And like as Caitlin said, a lot of the times it's combining the modalities. It might be working with a pelvic therapist, it might be working with a relationship coach or relationship marriage family therapist. And we can't think our way into safety, right? that trauma and the pain, it still lives in the body, right? So it is a psychosomatic process. And so I love, Jamie, what you shared are some other ways to enter into that work through narrative therapy, play, and art as well, as a way to just, again, kind of purge that from the body and, like you said, reauthor a new story. I love that. Other people are adding it's so important in the chat. Just lost it. It's so important for trans people who get vaginoplasties to dilate how their doctors tell them to. If they don't, it can cause drastic complications in the healing of their vaginal canals. Other people are asking, curious if the emotion of embarrassment or shame comes up. I know that there can be some insecurity and worries that the vulva vagina does not look normal, and that can cause some anxiety, stress, and tension before sex and pelvic exams. That could then make sex and exams painful due to muscle tension. Any thoughts on that?
I think I don't know, that wasn't necessarily just for me, but I think that definitely sounds like it could be the case, right? Like any kind of anxiety around, even if it's not, oh, I've had pelvic pain before or pain with sex before, and that's the anxiety. Maybe it is the anxiety of like someone else seeing it or engaging with it at all that is the anxiety.
Yeah.
And so,
like you said before too, like speaking, coming to working with professionals, finding that safe space to process. Absolutely.
yeah.
All right, we're transitioning over. I'm looking at time and I want to have time to talk more about arousal and libido. So someone had asked, how would a mental health professional navigate couples who are struggling with differences in libido? And I think we can kind of also generalize this as pertaining to couples that might have desire discrepancies. People are asking, how do you quote unquote prevent low libido? So what would we say about low libido? What's actually going on there? When is it something to accept versus something to explore? And then how might we also support our clients through that? Yeah, Jamie, what's coming up for you?
Hi. So a couple of things are coming up for me there. One of them is that because I am not in any way, shape, or form, I do not consider myself a medical professional at all. So if I have a client or a couple as a client who is experiencing like a sudden shift in their libido or like any sudden changes around that, I recommend to go get an actual like physical workup, and make sure there's not like a physical thing happening or something with our hormones or something like that. But barring that, and of course, simultaneously, I would do shit, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. I would do some work with them on, have there been any changes like in your life recently that could, just make you not as interested, right? Like some people I think don't even realize like how things like might affect their desire to have sex or, things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. Normalizing those discrepancies, understanding that there can be a lot of factors and variables that impact libido and desire, sociocultural factors, hormones, stress, unresolved relational trauma, perimenopause, someone had asked about as well. And people have asked in the chat, especially as an asexual person who is dating an allosexual person. I know not all ace people have low libidos, but as someone who does, it is quite the discrepancy. Absolutely. And again, discrepancies are okay. They're actually more common than not. It doesn't mean that anything is wrong with either person, right? And so I know in terms of working with clients, I firstly normalize that and just provide some psychoeducation and myth busting, right? We don't all experience desire and attraction the same way. And that's born out of right compulsory monogamy, compulsory sexuality, right? Assuming that everyone's allosexual and experiences sexual and romantic attraction, right? Like this person sharing in the chat. And thank you for sharing that. And that's not the case. So For me, with my clients, I like to actually decenter desire a little bit after that educational work and then recenter pleasure. And pleasure does not imply that it's necessarily sexual. So again, for aspec folks, there's space for, hey, what does pleasure look like for you? And then for allosexual folks, right? What does non-sexual pleasure look like for you? And how do we kind of find some common ground? And co-create intimacy in a way that works for everyone. Again, outside of these norms and dictates and outside of the shame. People are saying in the chat, less stress, more connection. Absolutely. I love it. Anyone else want to share around navigating desire discrepancies?
Can I have one more thing that I forgot?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Thank you. And what you said made me think of it about like decentering desire and centering pleasure is, and I think of Whitney, BDE Moves, who we met at like a North Carolina Sex Con, and they did a whole presentation on the whole thing was kind of about play and vulnerability in sex, and that having humor and being vulnerable with your partner and being playful with your partner, even if it's, it can be totally non-sexual, but those things kind of enhance libido. They create the environment for a sexual connection to like flourish. And so I think too, like it definitely is not that like the longer you're in a relationship, you're going to lose desire and you're going to like, I don't think that has to be the case, but it can happen because as intimacy grows, eroticism takes kind of a back seat sometimes. So thinking about, if we are in a couple or whatever type of relationship, creating the environment for our sexual relationship to thrive.
Yeah. And people,
it's really
absolutely. And people are, recognizing in the chat and acknowledging that and resonating with it, right? Developing intimacy beyond physical intimacy. Absolutely. Megan, what's coming up for you around this?
So I took a class a million years ago at a con that was fantastic. And it was especially on focusing with the aging population and the lower libido and lower desire in an aging population. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was to like identify what your tingle time is, because I think there's so much expectation that like sex happens at night. But for a lot of my clients who might be, raising a family and they're managing a household and they're working full time and there's all these societal expectations on them, like 11 o'clock at night, they are tired. And the last thing they want to do is have sex. So like when I always encourage them, I'm like, when do you feel most excited? Like when are you aroused and what is leading to that? And especially if my clients don't have like access to resources, like our amazing panelists that are on here, for whatever reason, I always try to connect them to folks, but not everyone's going to pull the trigger on it. To really work on communication skills with their partner, to identify what the things are that gets them turned on and aroused, that gets them excited, that makes them want to connect with their partner, and to realize that it's not as simple as like popping a pill, because a pill's just a Band-Aid. It's really like, what's the connection? What's the reasoning behind it? And like, when would this best fit our schedule? And I know some people are very turned off by scheduled sex or scheduled intimacy, but that can also create desire, knowing that you have something to look forward to. If you have a very busy schedule, setting aside a specific night of the week that is going to be y'all's connection night. I see the chat blowing up, 234 every 2 to 3 business days, right? But find the time that you're most excited and act on it.
I think that's all super helpful. And it just goes to show, again, like desire discrepancies are common, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of your relationship or intimacy or connection or sex life. And there are tools and strategies, and with intention and effort and communication, right, we can make it happen. So I love it. Some people are like, yeah, I feel it most in the morning. Yeah. The talk about it not being night exclusive. Absolutely. So communicating those preferences. Absolutely. Scheduling gives the time to shave my body and then sneak something fancy under my PJs. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I would love to invite all of our participants right now, our guests, to share one word in the chat that describes how you're feeling right now, or one thing you learned tonight that was helpful. So, one word that describes how you're feeling, one word that was helpful. If you enjoyed this month, I'm inviting you to join us next month, Tuesday, May 19th, from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Zoom again. And we will be talking about staying or leaving relationships. So we know relationships evolve, and sometimes that means repair, sometimes it means restructuring, sometimes it means redefining, and sometimes it means letting go. So we're talking about how to navigate these turning points. We'll explore everything from communication to repair to restructuring to how to navigate breakups with intention and care as well. So we'll also have some new panelists in the future. Thank you, guests, for being here. We love seeing you every month. It means so much to us, truly. And also, we turn 1 years old next month. So for those of you that have been here guests, you have been with us almost a year next month. So we're developing community, we're developing relationships. It feels good. Thank you to our amazing panelists who came with extensive knowledge today. We had realia, we had like diagrams, we had live demos and show and tell. We had engagement from the chat, and I think we were able to cover a lot tonight. So we hope you're leaving feeling informed, inspired, more connected. And if you want to connect with our panelists, I'll be following up with an email with their links. You can reach out to them, work with them. Panelists, anything you want to say to our guests before they start logging off?
Don't miss Megan's link, y'all.
Okay, Megan's got her link in the chat. People are saying they're excited. People understand libido better now. As an asexual person, I struggle quite a bit with that, feeling hype. Everyone's saying informed, empowered, encouraged. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next month. Stay tuned for more details. Until next time.